Traditionally, the restaurant industry was not for me. I think this is what I just made for myself. My name is Saud Khan. I'm a Pakistani chef. I build cafes and cook the most amazing Pakistani food, I guess. I honestly bring culture to table. I think that when you come to my spaces, just be introduced to a piece of my back home. I started when I was 20, and I think it's really nerve-wracking for a 20-year-old beginner chef that, make a restaurant. That's a huge, huge task. The cafe was a little bit more, approachable. Cafe is so day-to-day that I wanted to pay homage to both people that can come in every single day and not have to, break a bank just to have dinner with my service. So cafe was just a little easier for me to get into, and then it allowed me to become the chef that I needed to be to do those higher-end dinners. My mom and dad had restaurants ever since coming to the States. So I was raised in that type of restaurant environment. I got my start in doing tandoor work. So when I was about 12 years old, my mom and my dad would just tell me not to go near the tandoor. And what I do as a 12-year-old is that I went far into the tandoor. I would ask one of his chefs, yo, can you help me put a naan in? And so one day it was a really busy service for them. They were shorthanded, and my dad just needed 10 naans or something. And I was like, I got you. So I started making the naan, just slapping them in, and my dad looked at me after, so he was like, I'm gonna see you after, but then he gave me a pat on the back. He said, good job. So I think for me, that really started my interest in the restaurant world. So it's about almost 6:30, and that's our sellout service starting. So no time to mess up anymore. It's big boy time. A lot of the dishes you see at the cafe actually are from my pop-ups I used to do a year or two ago. Those are dishes that I came up with that worked really well and were kind of I wouldn't say a tourist attraction, but as soon as someone posted about it, it went viral. We have a gulab jamun donut. So we made, honestly, if you ask me how I did it, I would tell you, I knew we don't have donuts in our cuisine. And I really like donuts. And so something that I wanted to fidget with was the gulab jamun. I was making just a crap ton of them. So we want to take traditional things, but add a little tweaking to them. I think my biggest critics at times are my parents. So I never had a feeling that I needed to impress anybody. I think it was for them that I did all this stuff. But I've never been the type to be worried about oh, what will people say? Because how would they know until we try it? You know what I mean? I have this thing of doing double meanings to all of my restaurants. So Alif is my other space. I started that one. That was my first baby restaurant, right? So Alif means start of a new beginning, and it's the first letter in Quran. So it was a very spiritual thing for me, and also on top of that, it was a new venture for me. Kaafi, I was actually, I was doing the business plan for Kaafi. I was on FaceTime with my cousins because I have a bunch of cafes and stuff. And so he was like, Kaafi nahi hai, and then I looked at him and I went, what did you just say? He said Kaafi. I'm like, bang, that's it. And then it worked out because, Kaafi meaning chai coffee, and then Kaafi meaning enough. So that gave me that two meaning thing that I'd look for, and then I wanted to pay homage to my dad. He's from Lahore. I took the Minar Pakistan, the logo. It looks like an Eiffel Tower. It's Pakistani Eiffel Tower, I guess. But that's where the Pakistani Constitution was written. So and signed and declared. So that was a big thing for me to pay homage to my father, plus the country that I'm from. So the three females of my life, my sister, my mother, and my significant other, they were the biggest influences as far as having the eye. Yammer and I work really closely on the magic that you see here. She's the one that puts it all together. So all of our restaurants want to basically make you feel like you're at home. We don't want to make you feel like you're at a restaurant. You would see things around here like framework, and you'll see dupattas and topis that are on the wall because you want to recognize things that are on the wall. Maybe you would have something like this at your house, So I just wanted you to come in and then let your guard down. Be if you walk into your grandma's house, you're like, my grandma got me. You know what I mean? We want to make sure you have that feeling here. The biggest seller, I would say, as far as food goes, is probably the non-wich. Non-which, it came from Alif when I used to have random Americans coming inside and be like, you guys have sandwiches? And you know, we do curries and stuff, so we don't really have sandwiches. And so I was always just like, no, we don't, you know? And then, it's been a couple of years since this happening, and everyone's like, why don't we have sandwiches? I just remember having like a naan that I made, and then I close it up and I cut it into like a sandwich. I'm like, oh, this is a sandwich, this could work. But I think butter chicken naan, which is like one of the biggest sellers. Tonight I have dinner service. I do start prepping like the night prior. So like I was here until 4 a.m. last night. I got home, woke up at 6, which was only just 2 hours, but I'm just really excited and I can't, get the jitters out to sleep enough. I'll go out and work out before coming into work. Normally I get into work around like 9 to 10, and then I'm here all day until maybe 10, 11 a.m. And then I go eat food, and then I come back and do some type of prep. So just because you're a chef doesn't mean you're a good businessman. So I think the first year for me was like, holy crap, how did I do a net negative when I had a really good summer? If you want to have your own business, you have to really, really know your numbers. After that, other than the business, I think it was really the struggle of just working insane hours every day with little reward. It's a lot of work. Like, it's a lot of work. And I think that if it's not your passion, it's not your dream, then you shouldn't do it. But if you even have like just a little bit of, like, oh, I love presenting it, I love doing it, see it through. The favorite part of the job is really coming up with things that are just never done. Like we're working on some items on this menu, especially. If you told your regular average auntie that, this is something Pakistani, she'd be like, that's not Pakistani, you know what I mean? So I love working outside the box in our dishes. And then on top of that, yes, the people's reaction. When people look into that dish that looks familiar but doesn't at the same time, but then they have it, they're like, holy crap, this is what we can do to our food. That's like the most satisfying feeling for me. It wasn't my dream to have a restaurant. When I was a kid, my dad opened his first restaurant in America back around 2007. It's not the restaurant that stuck. It was like every other year, my dad would open a restaurant, we'd have to close it back down. So I remember those days where I already knew what it took to fail, because again, I'm the eldest son of the family, so I was in the back of the truck of the U-Haul, putting in coolers back in there to bring to the next base. So for me, it was looking back at that. And then my mother always used to tell me that you don't really fail until you stop. So as soon as you stop, then you fail. But then if you keep going at it, and again, my dad being like the visual representation of that, like it's hard to close a restaurant, especially if it's your first, right? And he's done that 4 times. So I can only imagine if his mental was like, oh, this didn't work, everyone's telling me that it's not working, I could just stop. But he's like, nope, let's get another one going, you know what I mean? That for me was like, I didn't have any type of worries about that. So I want to open up an establishment just for my dinner services, and it'll be really experimental, but I think that there is a real big need for Pakistani food to be on that higher elevated block. So that's the dream for now. I think that you should really, whatever it is, just go for it. I think this gap that you have from 20s to 30, this is like risk it all moment, like learn as much as you can, but also risk it all. Like don't be afraid to take the jump in whatever field you're in. I took it, I landed on the flip side. It was really, really fun. The journey has been super fun. I've learned a lot, I've got a lot of scars from the work, but it is okay. And I can tell you that it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of sacrifice, but it's really worth it at the end of the day once you start something and build something, and you can step back and take a look like, 9 years after that restaurant opened, that's crazy, So it's beautiful.